Why is there no healthy alternatives on the market to conventional energy drinks? We wanted to do something that was leading the way, leading the charge, right? When I drank caffeine from tea, I felt better for longer. Like there has to be something to this. There's studies now showing that it combines with the caffeine molecule and prolongs its positive effects.
Hello.
Hi, Gursh. You guys look great. Have you been working out or something?
Every day.
I can tell.
Yeah, both of us. We have a great routine.
I can see. I can see it in the skincare.
Yes,
Did
that
you change
too.
shampoos?
A little bit of dry shampoo over here, as you can see, but you know, I do the same thing once a week, every Sunday.
You nailed it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And how have you been?
I've been fantastic. I'm excited to be here again.
We're excited to see you again.
You guys have got so much better looking in just 3 months.
We've really been trying. I got some dermaplaning done.
The effort is paying off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I keep
You guys have been interrupting our meetings all day long.
What is this?
Again, this is the third meeting today.
Wow.
Oh, sorry.
There you guys are.
You know, it's Halloween today, and I can't believe those outfits actually tricked you.
Well, it was so realistic. I could hardly tell the difference.
Was it the hair?
I think it was the hair.
Yeah, it was there.
It's the hair and the skincare.
Yeah, that's the third meeting today that we've walked into where they've taken over, which is
Jeez.
Yeah.
It's pretty hard to tell the difference.
I think next year we're gonna have to dress up as them. It's been a pretty funny day. I
That'll
thought.
be a good. Get them back.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how have you been? It's been a while since we've all had a chance to connect, and it's good to have you on the podcast. Just before we actually jump into it, I should introduce you. So this is Mitch from, if you can't guess,
Rviita Energy Tea. Thanks for having me. It's an honor to be back, guys. So super inspired by my visit last time, and happy to be back on the pod.
Yeah, it's great. It's great to have you on. So, you know, we always want to be able to introduce our guests in a way that, you know, feels wholesome and true to what it is that we're trying to do as an organization. But your story is a little bit of a crazy one, because most entrepreneurs that have businesses and that we've spoken to are service-based or skill-based, but you've decided to push out a product.
Yes.
So can you tell us a little bit about the product itself?
Absolutely. Well, there's a lot of days I wish I was a service-based business, I'll tell you that much. But Rviita Energy Tea, it's a healthy energy drink. I created it. The inspiration actually was when I was in my early 20s. My best friend, I was out with him one night, and this guy loved energy drinks, probably too much. And I'll never forget it. He went pale white, nearly passed out. I rushed him to the hospital, and the doctor walks in and says, "Your best friend, 21 years old, I have a hard time believing this, but he had a heart attack." Fortunately, he's made a full recovery. He's fine now, but that was the light bulb moment of, why is there no healthy alternatives on the market to conventional energy drinks? Couldn't find one anywhere, so tried to create one. Have no background in this. I'm actually an engineer by trade, so it's been a wild ride trying to figure this out. Made every mistake you can imagine, but it's been a very fulfilling journey.
Well, and that's an interesting piece, right? Is that you didn't just create an energy drink that's better for you. You went to every aspect and tore it apart, right? Including the packaging, the way that the information is presented, and talk a little bit about that. Like, why is it that you went with this packaging specifically?
Yeah, why did we choose the crazy pouch? Well, much like you guys, right? I wanted to create a company that really put the environment first, right? We wanted to do something that was leading the way, leading the charge, right? With environmental sustainability. And originally I thought it was going to be in a can or a glass bottle, because I just figured those are probably the most environmental options because everyone's using them. But when I looked at the data, like some of these reports, what kept coming up was the pouch. The pouch is really lightweight. It can be shipped flat, so you can imagine an aluminum can or a glass bottle being shipped in its full form when it's empty. It's a massive carbon footprint, right, over the transportation cycle. Whereas the pouch doesn't really have that because it's so compact. It can take up 20 times less space than a glass bottle, but no one was using it. So this was an opportunity for me to kind of be a trailblazer, I guess, in Canada and North America, really, with bringing the pouch and making it cool, other than a Capri Sun, right? That's really the only other pouch beverage most people think of.
Yeah, that's true. And the Capri Sun actually isn't recyclable, from what I understand.
It's not recyclable. It's recyclable through TerraCycle.
Yeah.
But the advantages with the Capri Sun pouch, again, is just it's so compact and lightweight that even if there's challenges with recyclability, there's a lot of studies showing that over its life cycle, it can be better for the environment than other packaging formats, which is really interesting.
Yeah.
Counterintuitive. Like I didn't think that until I looked through these reports.
No, absolutely. And I think that's a major consideration in the world that we live in today is how can you actually reduce your impact as much as possible, but still get to live like a normal human being?
Absolutely.
Because I guess do you feel like you need caffeine in your life every single day?
Yeah. 100%. No, I'm not that bad. But, oh yeah. Yeah. I think a day without would be I don't know if you want to hang out with me on those days.
Yeah, I hear you. Me too.
You're gonna have to deal with me a little bit. I'm planning on cutting out caffeine here pretty soon.
Good for you.
Yeah,
man.
just give it a try. See what happens. Just as Kai laughs.
Everyone heard that.
Yeah. No, it's been said out loud, but I've been planning for a little while now, and I think I want to just give it a go to see what happens. And I was planning on actually using your product to be able to kind of lean off of the coffee and then go completely off rather than just shutting it out, because caffeine is an interesting tool, I suppose.
It's a tool,
that humanity uses. So what was the key aspect of that? Like, why is it that you wanted to, I know there was a problem that you wanted to solve in relation to what happened to your friend.
Yes.
But how do you feel that the product is beneficial once it's actually in the human body?
Yeah, great question. Well, this was something, like when I set out to create an energy drink, I looked at the ingredients and, the big energy drinks out there, right? I'm going to cut out the sugar, I'm going to cut out the taurine, I'm not going to use any chemicals, everything's going to be natural. But when I was testing different caffeine sources, what I kept coming back to was tea. When I drank caffeine from tea, I felt better for longer. Like there has to be something to this. So again, did some research. Well, sure enough, tea naturally contains amino acids. And there's studies now showing that it combines with the caffeine molecule and prolongs its positive effects. So you don't get the same jitters or crash that you might from, say, a cup of coffee or like an energy drink where you're just getting that quick hit of caffeine.
Yeah.
So that's the number one piece of feedback we get typically from customers is they don't get the crash or the jitters from our product, even though the caffeine content is similar to like a cup of coffee.
Yeah. And I think Kai's laughing because we've had this conversation before, and I almost sometimes have liked that boost that you get from a really strong coffee. And I had this is going to put me into an awkward situation. I had a pumpkin spice latte the other day. I was like, you know what? It's that time of year. I have to have one.
Goes with your great skin.
But those are even crazier, right?
So it's insane.
They're like over 300 milligrams.
It is, and I wanted to.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And I wanted to try it out, and I was like, let's just see what happens here. And I was furniture shopping at IKEA, and I was off like a rocket, and I ended up buying a bunch of the wrong furniture.
There you go.
Luckily, I was able to figure it out before I left the store. But I ended up picking out the wrong furniture. And it goes to speak that sometimes things that are longer and more sustainable are actually better for you, not even in your body, but in the general world, right?
100%.
So were you a coffee drinker before you switched over?
Yeah, I was absolutely a coffee and an energy drink addict for sure. I was coffee in the morning and energy drinks throughout the day. And I was having adverse health effects from drinking coffee or energy drinks too. And then sometimes, 2 p.m. in the office, and it's warm out in the summer, the last thing you want is another cup of coffee. But I always feel like you needed that boost, right?
Yeah.
An energy drink didn't really do it. And if I brought an energy drink into my office back when I worked downtown, I would get teased in meetings, right? They're like, what is wrong with you?
Yeah.
Because some of these brands, like a Monster can, great brand, look up to them, but it doesn't necessarily go with a business suit, right?
No.
The branding isn't meant for that, right?
Yeah.
And so that was another problem we were trying to solve is branding that was professional and clean so that it could go with, a professional lifestyle. Yeah,
and absolutely. And you have a mountain in the logo as well too, right? Or I guess what is the word that we call this now?
The monogram.
The monogram.
The monograms. Yeah.
There we go. Thanks, guys. So we have a mountain in there as well too. That is, what is that tied to? What does that signify?
Yeah, it's a couple things. So it's actually 2 lightning bolts colliding was what we originally meant, but it looks like a mountain.
Oh.
So
No way. Really?
So it's kind of like a double meaning to the logo. Okay. But something, being an Alberta-based brand, and my sister and co-founder Carly, her passion is hiking, her passion is the mountains.
Okay.
And so we really wanted to incorporate, something that had to do with the mountains, something to do with our roots, and just the lifestyle of getting outdoors and enjoying everything that our world has to offer is all encapsulated in our brand.
Is that where the name came from too?
So the name's short for the word revitalize, actually.
Oh, yeah.
And we went through a number of names early on. I didn't know what a trademark search was, so I'd invested a whole bunch of money in other brand names. And then fortunately a mentor of mine said, did you do a trademark search? And I said, what's a trademark? And all those original names were taken. But we kept coming back to the word revitalize because it means to give new life and vitality to. And that's the ethos of our brand, really, right? Is we want to help people feel better. But we can't use the word revitalize, it's trademarked. Rviita was like a Revita, was like a shampoo company, I think, in the States or something like that. So we said, well, I always like two eyes next to each other, like what Nintendo did with the Wii. It's like two people standing next to each other, symbolizes family values. So we shortened revitalize to Rviita and put the two eyes. And that's, kind of the long and short of how we came up with the name.
Yeah, no, and that's great. I think being able to tie it back to something that matters is always the way to go, right? It tells you that the individuals that are involved in a process care about what they're doing.
Yes.
And I mean, what's a big brand in the drink market that's come out recently?
Yeah, like probably Prime is like one of the ones that has come out.
I don't.
Maybe
and they are
huge now. Yeah.
And good on them for being able to get to where it is and using the marketing prowess that you have. But how well do you know that brand? Do you feel like there's that same purpose, that same drive behind it?
No, absolutely not. Not the same purpose and drive that we have. I respect what they're doing, and they're an incredible company. I mean, there's lots to be learned from. And maybe they are founded on great principles and really want to do good, but that's not how I personally perceive that brand.
Yeah, and I mean, to be fair, they've amplified it in different ways. And for those who don't know, Prime energy drink, I believe it is, or whatever
hydration drink.
Yeah, and a hydration drink. Prime Hydration, that's right.
Yeah.
Is a drink started by two social media individuals, Logan Paul and KSI.
KSI, that's right.
And they've been able to push it through a bunch of different channels, one which is boxing. Now, are you planning on getting into a Muay Thai match and then branding yourself?
Yeah, well, since
Rviita?
I've seen you guys last time, I've taken up Muay Thai, so...
We saw one of the videos online. I think your sister caught you.
That's right, yeah. I was really inspired by some of the guests you've had on there. I think it was Steve, right? He just had a fight not too long ago, so I was really inspired by that episode. And shortly after that, joined a local Muay Thai gym, Exceed Muay Thai, and it's become my new addiction. So I think we absolutely want to get involved in the martial arts world. And I know both of you have a martial arts background, right?
Yeah. I mean, everybody that lives in the kind of areas that we grew up in probably have gotten into fights. But
I was gonna say, I don't know if it's a martial arts background. Mine's definitely less. Mine's less.
I'd like to think I did because I pursued it all the way through with the goal of getting to the achievement level. So, and the competition level. But it's nice. It grounds you, right? And I think as individuals, zooming out here a little bit.
Yes.
What's been centric to your life that you found is now coming back? Because once you start a business, it's all consuming.
It's all consuming, yeah. So I think, a big part of my identity as a kid was athletics, right? I grew up a basketball player. That was my first big passion in life. And then, getting into my 20s, I really lost that. I tried competing in other sports like powerlifting and did a men's physique show even one time, but I never felt that same like drive and passion. And I'm getting it from Muay Thai now, from martial arts. So it's been so nice to have the business, but then have an outlet and a passion and a focus to channel that energy. Like I feel like I'm more focused at the office. I'm managing my stress better. So it's been really nice to have something like that back in my life again.
Yeah, and it's amazing what having a physical outlet and getting your body to move does for the mind, right?
Yeah, absolutely. What do you guys do for an outlet? Because man, oh man, with all the employees you have here, you must have some good stress management techniques.
Yeah, Kai, if you want to.
I guess mainly the gym. So honestly, if I don't go to the gym, I notice it
Yes.
very heavily. Again, that's not like I go 7 days a week, but if I can go to 4 to 5 times a week, I'm good at that. And then I use that, plus I use soccer. Try not to head the ball anymore, but no, I use
direct correlation between ALS and heading soccer.
It's wild, but
really,
But no, so I'll do soccer. So I play usually once a week on a team, which kind of is that same thing, right? It's a sport, where I think sometimes the gym can become fairly boring,
monotonous.
Yeah, the same thing.
Yeah.
At least you're interacting. One thing I do like is like actually going there. You get to be able to interact with individuals. It's a social aspect to it.
Yeah.
And then running when we're training for the marathon, and then starting in January, I'll be training for Ironman. So it'll be, so that'll be a bit more intense. It'll be like 15 to 20 hours a week of training, which will keep my mental state. We'll see. It'll help with the work side of things, but it
crosses over.
It'll cross over, but also be a lot of dedication on it. So
Yeah.
I would say those are my main things. But yeah, other than that, no, that's mainly.
Did you guys notice a mindset shift when you started training for marathons? Like, did you feel?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Did you feel
It's
better at the
insane.
office?
Yeah.
And, yeah.
Yeah, it's instant. That's a really good question. I think the whole mindset aspect about fitness is a very interesting topic.
Yes.
And what Kai was alluding to and what he mentioned about soccer, so those of you who want to know more, I'm going to quote a different individual here, but the consistency of the brain is equivalent to soft butter. So like if you've ever seen butter that's been sitting on the counter and you poke it, that's how soft your brain is.
Jeez.
And when a soccer ball hits the front of your head, it damages your frontal cortex.
Really?
So, and then the activity completely dies down. So what would be interesting, and I'd love for you to do this, is if you could get in touch with individuals who do brain scans and test different products, including coffee and things like that, and get them to test Rviita and see how it actually triggers different neural pathways in the brain. Because I have a feeling that this product will actually show a difference. And if you can get that kind of quantified data on the back end, that'd be really cool to see.
Really cool, yeah.
And tying that into what I'm getting at with sports is, especially when it comes down to business, I think what ends up happening is that you open yourself and you have to expose yourself in a way that an individual who has the luxury of, showing up to a job, having a specific task doesn't. The variability in the work that you do, the number of hats that you wear, there's always that saying is, I think from any given time, we've worn probably a maximum of 15 different hats in the company, but at a minimum, it's typically 3 to 4 at a time.
Yes.
So your brain becomes fragmented. What fitness has allowed me to do is to organize those all down into what is actually important. So I come out of those exercises with a lot of focus and clarity in regards to this is what I need to do next.
Yes.
And that's what I'm going to focus on for today. And then I can organize the rest of the things, put them in the calendar, delegate them and things of that nature otherwise. So that's where I find the biggest impact from running came from, is that your whole body is engaged. You're fighting gravity because you're just basically moving your body against it. And then your mind comes into a state of ease, which you don't get from weightlifting. Weightlifting is great.
It's great, yeah.
But it's a different kind of workout that doesn't stress the right part of your body. So you need to almost do a combination of both. Because everybody wants to look good and feel good.
Yes.
Weights help you look good, but cardio makes you feel good.
It makes you feel good. It's so true. Yeah. I haven't really done much cardio the last decade, truthfully. It's just been hitting the iron. So it's been so nice to get out and sweat, right? You feel way different after a Muay Thai session than after
it's like you're almost high
doing bench press. Yeah. It's a high. It's truly a high. It's amazing.
Yeah. But going into my fitness goals, Kai, what did you say? I think you said are you doing a marathon and Ironman?
Depends what it is,
Yeah. So timing, I'll have to figure out Kai's schedule. My goal is to just eat food and watch him. So I'm going to see how fat I can get this year. I'm just be like, whoa.
Join you on the couch.
I'm just going to be like this, good job, buddy. Keep it up. Just fall asleep all the time.
Yeah. Golf court. Follow around.
Yeah.
Potato chips.
Yeah. I'll just be boosted on the energy, just ripping around on a skateboard or something. But no, my goal is a little bit more focused in on just one thing. So to be fair, I have the itch for the Ironman. And it was because I was watching, Kai kept on talking about it, and I was like, oh man, okay, I'm going to casually look into it and see what's piquing my interest.
Yeah.
But I don't want to do it yet. And my formula is a little bit different. So as individuals, we all have different forces in our lives. I have 3 kids. So I want to make sure that they actually get to see me go through the training process.
Yeah.
My boys are turning 3 this Saturday.
Yeah.
And then my daughter's 6. So the age of 3, do you plan on having kids someday?
One day for sure.
Yeah, so you'll see this as well too. But ultimately, once they get to that age, you can tell they're very much just about themselves still, and they're not overly aware of the world around them to the same level that a 6-year-old kid would be.
Yes.
So I'm planning on doing it when I'm 40, which would put all the kids at a really good age where they'll be able to really see the impact.
Yeah.
Plus, I want them to be able to come to the Ironman and cheer me on or just yell at me for motivation, one of the two.
Yes.
So I'm going to wait till I'm 40, but this year my goal is to do a sub-3 marathon, which is going to be
tough.
It's going to be tough. Like I've done 3 hours and 40 minutes is my fastest one.
Yeah.
Or 3 hours and 41 is my fastest. In ideal conditions, literally like Toronto could not have been better. Perfect temperature.
Yeah.
We rested perfectly. We went into it with the right amount of training. Somewhat, I think you had a couple variables. Kai decided to get a little bit of artwork done halfway through the season. And then, so I'm going to be planning on doing that.
Yeah.
And then I'll be most likely doing a little bit of additional training with Kai. So I know we're planning on doing a mini triathlon for fun, is what I heard.
No, but it's like the 10-minute thing with Matt you're talking about?
Yeah, it's a mini.
It's like you do them, but it's not like distance way, it's time based.
Yeah.
So it's at it's not Repsol, what's it called?
Whatever
Repsol place used to be called?
MNP?
MNP, I think it's in March.
Yeah, so it's 10 minutes of each discipline.
Oh. See how much you can do, yeah.
So it's rapid.
Yeah.
Really
If you want to join, you're welcome to.
Hey, yeah, come check it out.
Give it a go. So it's,
with Gursh,
when I get into those situations, you will see a lot of puke. I'll push till I puke.
That's good.
Yeah, it's bad.
I think that's a common trait of a lot of successful entrepreneurs that I've learned about anyways, is they have
I won't stop. I'll just, in the pool, just go in, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll end up anyways. So no, and so hopefully that provides some perspective. I know you mentioned that how long has it been now since you've been doing the Muay Thai?
Just a few months. Yeah.
And
just in that short period of time, I've noticed a huge difference.
Yeah. So you talked about how you're more focused in the office. How are you finding, and this is the biggest area, probably the most important thing that I feel that we do as human beings on any given day isn't what we do, it's how do we interact with the people around us.
Yeah, totally.
Like, are you treating them nicely? Are you treating them well? I think a phrase that I'm trying to live by is be kinder than what's necessary.
Yes.
How do you feel that that's helped you in that realm of things?
Oh, it certainly improved it for sure, right? Because you feel better. When you feel better, you're going to naturally treat people even better. So I think my energy in the office has been more positive. Like, truthfully, 2023 has been a very challenging year. We've had a ton of manufacturing problems. And like, by the time I had seen you guys a few months ago, it was really, really getting to me. Like mentally, I was probably in one of the lowest states I'd been in. And then I joined Muay Thai and it's like, now I have a goal to work towards, right? I want to have an amateur fight one day. So now it's that extra drive. I think I heard Tyson Fury talk about it when he was coming out of depression, right? As soon as he set a goal to fight Wilder, it was like everything just cured almost for him overnight.
Do you think he's back in the depression though after what Francis Ngannou did to him?
Very well.
Holy man, what a surprise.
That was a shocker.
Yeah. Incredible. So you said, then pulling out of it, having that goal helped, right?
Having something to work towards, be able to go to do something new 4 or 5 days a week. Like I felt much better mentally. Like my mental state was better. And so to answer your question, I think absolutely like my energy in the office has been better, right?
How comfortable are you talking about those thoughts that you were having when you
I'm very open about it.
So how dark did it get?
Like super dark. As dark as you can imagine this year, for sure. Like I've been one of those guys who questioned if depression was a real thing. And then I went through it this year and it's absolutely a real thing. Like when you wake up in the morning and everything's gray and you can't get out of bed. And I did it to myself, truthfully. Like things just got so hard in the business that I got to a place where just getting out of bed in the morning was an accomplishment. Like everything felt harder. Like every email I had to send felt harder. I didn't feel in a good headspace. And I felt lost because it felt like things in the business weren't going the way we wanted them to go. Some of it was out of our control, a lot of it actually. Yeah. And when you go every day and you're working so hard towards a goal and you want it so bad and then it just feels like it's never been further away. Yeah. And then you pair that with not having a goal outside of the office, right? Like I used to have basketball or I was working towards a powerlifting competition. You just feel lost. You feel
all consumed.
Like you don't have a purpose and all consumed by just the problems, and then you're not sleeping, and then things compound, and it was the worst place mentally I'd ever gotten myself into.
And how, like, if you don't mind asking, how old were you when that?
Just turning 32.
Yeah, which is 30 is a delicate age.
Which is like, because I think everybody, 30 is still very young, don't get me wrong, but you have a lot of goals you want to check off by the time you're 30. And I was in a bit of a unique situation. So I quit my job in oil and gas to start Rviita, and I had all these stock options in my job. And the ironic part is if I had stayed in my career, I would have hit my financial goals by 30. But because I took the leap because the stock went up so much, but because I took the leap in entrepreneurship, I'm like, still not paying myself, right? Yeah. So I'm balancing this. I know I did the right thing. I'm pursuing my goal, but how, I'm looking back, like, did I make the right decision? It was the first time where I ever really questioned that. And I've made peace with it now. I did the right thing. But I think finding Muay Thai and finding something to work towards outside of the office has helped everything.
Yeah, that's huge. So now what do your thoughts look like now? And let's dive a little bit more. How often are you doing Muay Thai per week right now?
So I tore my right calf, so I'm currently out.
Was that because of Muay Thai?
Because of Muay Thai. Yeah.
Were you doing shin strengthening techniques? Were you striking? What caused it?
Yeah, so I just got back from physio this morning. I was going to Muay Thai, like I jumped right in. I was doing it like 5-6 days a week.
That's
I've
fine.
never done martial arts.
Fair
before,
enough.
Yeah.
And
Your
and
hips?
then
How are your hips feeling?
I'm on the production line, like
Oh.
sometimes 12 hours a day, and rubber boots on concrete. So he figured that just the pounding on the production line and then going straight to the gym after, like I was, the second time I was sparring, and I heard a pop in my calf.
Yeah.
And bang,
How long's recovery on that?
I'm hoping to be back in a couple weeks. So right now I'm just doing yoga and lots of physio. And,
Yes.
But even just having the goal of like, I'm going to get back in a couple of weeks has kept me feeling much sharper mentally. Is that something you guys have struggled with over the course of the company?
Dark times?
It's some
man.
I can only imagine.
There's I think the problem is, to keep it really simple, theoretically speaking, because everybody will rank their position in life differently than any other person. So there's no right or wrong. I'm not more successful than the next person just because I've done what I've done, and Kai's not more or less successful than me because it's relative to each individual. So the problem with the both of us is our bars are very high.
Yes.
And not just from our own perspective. That's why I wanted to open with that. I think even from a general standpoint, most people that have achieved a lot look at us and they'll be like, okay, you guys are a little bit ridiculous. So the problem with that is the higher you go, the deeper the depths.
Yes.
And the dark times are ones that we luckily have each other and we talk to each other, and but we do it in a very subtle, almost like non-abrasive manner when we need each other. You can tell when. I think we both have a good sense in terms of when one another needs to be able to speak to each other. We also have a good friends network. So we never have really truly felt, I guess I can speak to myself here. It's like you are lonely, but you have everybody around you.
Yes.
Is the easiest way to explain it. You feel like nobody else is going through what you're going through, right? But then as soon as you look up and you take a look at around you and you start counting the individuals in your life, the opportunities, blessings, luck, whatever the heck you want to call it, it becomes easier. But from a physical standpoint, it was what spawned the marathon running in the Strides for Sustainability. I'd gotten into a motorcycle accident on the way home from a ride one day.
Jeez.
And then ended up mangling a good portion of my body. Called Kai, and I was supposed to get on a flight to meet him in Europe, and I was like, hey, I can't make it. Long story short, recovered from it. But going back to what you were saying and looking at it from a different perspective, I was so driven to get back to it that when Kai came back from Europe, he's like, let's run marathons. I'm like, done. And 6 months later, we did the first one.
Fantastic.
Such a stupid idea. Looking back at it now, I'm glad we did it, but it was such a bad idea because my body went through hell, and that marathon almost took me 6 hours because there was things that were swelling. And I think it took me like 3 years to admit that marathon actually did hurt. I wasn't even willing to say it out loud. I was like, oh, it was fine, it was fine. I'm like crossing the line like one of the zombies in Thriller.
Yes.
It was bad, but I didn't want to admit it because I'd achieved the goal.
Yeah.
And the pain didn't matter anymore. And I think that's the beauty of having goals, is it doesn't matter what happened, you got to the line.
Yes.
I mean, so there's been many dark times in the journey, but I think that's life. And when you get to pick the path, in regards to what you were saying, you could have stayed in that job that you had previously and hit your financials goals, but you don't own it. It's better to go through darkness and own that journey, because then at least it's a choice.
Absolutely.
So that's the way that I look at it. I'm not sure, Kai, if you have any perspective.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that one of the other things that's interesting about the company that you start to learn, and I think I said this in our Evil Eye speech, but the more that accomplishments come in, the higher the highs with the lower the lows. So I think like you start to put this thing on yourself that's now the bar, and kind of what Gursh was talking to, right? Like for us, for example, we won the EY award, and like now that's a pretty high bar for us. So then when you start to falter off of that or start to do things that aren't at that level, it actually starts to like you go into a darker place quicker.
Yes.
And so for me, it's the same thing as what I mentioned with working out and like keeping active and setting goals. It's one of the reasons that like the Ironman for me is like a challenge that I'm like, I know I can push myself to do this. And it's going to be something that like, I'm going to give myself 6 months to train, and I have a goal of doing it under 12 hours. And like that sounds pretty crazy. to a lot of individuals. But for me, it's like those are the things that then make it, if I can achieve that and just finish that the actual highs of the business side of things, they kind of get leveled out with the lifestyle side of things. And then there's a balance between the two.
Yeah.
So for me, it's been like when I'm not balanced between my personal and my business life is when I usually experience the most kind of things where you start to think about stuff and you go into your head and you start to like let those things consume you. So the more balance I can find there, the easier it is for me personally. And then usually I can pull myself out of that. But there's definitely been times like there's times when you're like, why are we doing this? Why are we here? What's the reason for us being hit with like, again, you feel like every issue that can happen happens to you in a week or whatever it is, right? But I think you just have to kind of continue on that path and look at the bigger goal of what you're trying to achieve and pull yourself out of it. But yeah, there's definitely, I think it goes back to the co-founder side of things too. That does help if you can have someone that you're able to chat with about that. And usually sometimes you're both in that state at the same time, but it's not as common. A lot of times you're there in different times because you're going through different aspects that maybe impact you differently, situations in the company or whatever it might be. So
yeah, it's nice to have that counterbalance.
It helps a lot.
Helps a ton.
And the flavors change. Sometimes we'll be nice to each other about it, and sometimes we'll actually just be pretty ruthless.
Sometimes you need that though too, right?
Yeah, it's like pull up your socks kind of thing, but way harsher, non-podcast friendly language.
Totally.
So I mean that happens from time to time as well too. The last thing I'll add to it, I do believe I have the cheat code though. I have like three. I have like a beautiful family, right? I have three like that. I'm not even kidding. No matter how bad a day is, when you see these little gremlins and they're just like shoving food in their face or making mess and like building Legos and all just getting along and playing and giggling, even if they're crying, you're like, okay, this isn't actually that big. And you realize, then you start realizing, hold on a second, I'm in Canada. Hold on a second, I'm in Calgary.
Yes.
It's sunny here all the time. Could be in Vancouver. For those listening in Vancouver, sorry. So it's different, right? Like, I mean, there's so many different things and layers as an individual that you can choose to latch onto. But what Kai said was really wise, is that if you have balance between both of them, you can achieve that, I guess if you want to call it like Zen state.
Yes.
The only other thing I'll add is it's not about being better, it's about just being yourself. People typically get caught up in, I need to be better and I need to do more and I need to do this and this and this. Some people, that's what it'll look like on the outside. When you look at Kai, you're like, oh, you're doing an Ironman now? It's not because he's trying to be better. He's actually that's just how he is.
He's wired that way. Yeah.
It's crazy. So for me as an individual, I get to be able to be exposed to that. And ironically enough, him and I share a lot of those characteristics. So I'm like, okay, I always want to do this, and it's okay with allowing yourself to go into that state and represent that. And the biggest piece as well is when you're going through that whole process, it's about just making sure that you're doing it for yourself. Because if you're doing it for like, I want to be perceived in this way, or I want to be able to get along with this group of people, or I want these people to think I fit in, as soon as you change yourself to be able to fit into a certain environment, they'll accept you until they don't accept you, and then you're going to have to change all over again. So nobody is worth your time if you haven't found yourself to be worthy of your own time.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I think those are great points. And maybe you guys have struggled with this too, but one of the challenges I have is people's perception of you versus your reality can be so different, right? They probably look at you guys as like the one EY of the year. You have 150 employees or whatever it is now. You guys must be killing it. And then you go to the office and it's just a whole bunch of fires, right? Yeah. And they look at me and they're like, you're in 1,200 stores. You got into Superstore. And I'm like, yeah, but it's like, I don't even know how I'm going to make it through this day, right? And I think that, people from the outside are like, man, you're killing it. You must be so happy. And then I'm just firefighting all day, right? And it's managing... I think that too, like you said, you have all these people around you that love you, but a lot of times it can feel lonely because you're just so enthralled in the challenges of the business.
Yeah, absolutely. No, you're not wrong about that.
Well, actually, a question on that. So if you're, like, let's say you're going to the office, there's a bunch of these fires, and like you're consumed in that, how do you integrate your team into that while keeping them motivated?
Yeah, that's a great question. We're a very small team, so
Yeah.
it's a little bit different. It's
Yeah.
just the 3 founders, and we have 1 full-time employee
Yeah.
and some temporary or some
Such a-
part-time
That's
staff.
Such a beautiful time.
It's a
in the
good
company,
time.
man.
That's
It's a
it.
good time.
That's a good
We're having
time.
great times now, but that is
Yeah.
such a fun time.
That is a fun
It's a
time.
fun
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah, really, really enjoying it. And I think a lot of it is kind of what you said too, is we seem to balance each other out, right?
Mm.
Like, you know, I'll be down, a little bit down that week, but like my sister and business partner Carly, she's going to be crushing it. She's positive, vice versa, right? When, you know, Rob's having a tough week, we try and pick him up. And so I think it's feeding off each other's energy and understanding that we're all going to show up and we're going to work hard every day, but we're not always going to be 100% there mentally. We're all going to be dealing with stuff, and we got to support each other and make sure that we're aware of when one of us is having a tough time, you know, the others pick up the slack. And that's worked really well. And I'm very, very blessed to have such an amazing team.
That's awesome. Yeah, the smaller teams, I enjoy that one.
How many employees
Both
do you
are
guys
fun.
now?
All in? What is it? All in is probably around 200
Yeah.
with all aspects of the company.
Yeah, we call them
you.
full-time equivalents. I suppose is the
Yeah.
easiest way to communicate it is just a bit over
A
200.
bit over 200.
Yeah.
That is so inspiring.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think there are times where I go back and I remember, and I've grounded. I'm very much about reflecting and grounding myself in my memories, or moments that I think is important. I do still remember the days where I would get in my car and I go get the groceries before click and collect was a thing, which wasn't even that long ago. You know, now you can just order your groceries online, and I would just spend time like walking through the grocery aisle, taking my time picking my meals because I had the whole evening to make dinner.
Yes.
And now it's like my evenings are a mess.
I can imagine.
There's so much going on.
Yeah.
And there's a beauty in simplicity. And I think as an individual, especially in the country that we live in, if you can find a place to work where people are kind to you and you're being acknowledged for the efforts that you're putting in, you're actually completely winning life.
Yes.
So I feel like we have so much opportunity in the world that we live in, especially in the country that we're in, that sometimes gets overlooked because the mentality of more is in play.
Yes.
So I don't know. I think every individual is going to want something else, but if I can speak to like the greater population as a whole, is that maybe normal isn't so normal, and what you have is actually all you need.
I completely agree. Yeah. That's an important perspective too, to understand that, you know, my worst day could be someone's best day, right? A lot of people's best day,
Especially with what's going on around the world.
Especially with what's going on around the world. So my biggest problems as an entrepreneur doesn't even compare to what most people are going through. So I'm just grateful to be in this position in the first place.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a tough world out there, and we definitely have it easy. But that doesn't mean that those things aren't hard, because
For sure.
pain, every individual feels it in the moment a lot differently than other people do, right?
It's so true.
So you got all these different tools now. You're obviously working in the right direction to be able to utilize the new tools that you have. Do you feel like you're becoming more of a well-rounded person, or do you feel like there's other things that you want to add to your chest of what do you want to call it, like chest of skills?
Tool belt.
Tool belt? Yeah, I like tool belt. I like tool belt. There we go.
Yeah,
tool
I
belt.
think I got a lot of areas to really work on, and that's a constant process for me, right? I think martial arts has been a big part of that. Yoga now has been a big part of that, is really developing, you know, some of that mindfulness and staying in the present, and constantly, I think as an entrepreneur and as a leader, you have to be constantly growing, right? It's so important to be reading the books and doing that personal development, because you owe that to your team.
That's an interesting way of putting it as well, too. Actually, owing it to your team. Where does that come from? That desire to be able to take on that responsibility?
Yeah, I think it's something I've sort of had even as a kid, right? It was something ingrained in me. I'm sure you guys can relate to this too, right? I can still remember the first time playing a basketball game, and I just felt this drive, like I want to make the NBA. And I was so driven, and my entire focus, I got tunnel vision with basketball. Like I was reading books and doing whatever it took to be not just a better basketball player, but now better at my academics, because I wanted to get a scholarship to play ball. And so as soon as I shifted that focus from basketball to entrepreneurship, it's been that same drive. Is I want to see how good I can be, right? Get as close to my full potential as I possibly can. It's just it's an inner drive that's tough to explain, but I think it's always kind of been there.
No, I get that, and it never leaves you.
It never leaves you.
It never leaves you. It was just drawing parallels. When I was a kid, I was lucky enough. Manchester United was my team, so I had Beckham, and then Ronaldo came along.
Yes.
And when we were at the EY Award, they were doing the sequence of awards, and they said number 7, and I tapped Kai, and I was like, oh, Ronaldo. And then our name got called. I was like, that's so weird, man. Because he was one of my favorites, and I have a bad habit. I think in our chats, I always do like all caps and yell Ronaldo when like funny things happen. So when that happened in that moment, I was like, this is so wild. Yeah, it was kind of wild. And then the beautiful thing about, and everybody does this. So nobody that I know knows what happens when you die. And nobody knows where we came from.
Yes.
And we're very open-minded and accept everybody and their beliefs for what they are. But one of the things that we toy around with for fun is like simulation theory.
Yes.
And when that happened, we were both looked at each other and we're like, oh, this is classic.
Right?
There's like Elon's there just writing down the next steps of what he needs Zeno to do to fulfill his goals. And I was like, this is hilarious. So,
well, law of attraction too, right? You've been putting that out there for so long and look what happened, right? So
yeah, I should have just yelled Ronaldo on the stage. It would have been pretty funny. But talking about that and leaning really into it. So you have that methodology to your madness, I guess, let's call it.
Yeah.
What's the goal? What do you want to see with the business? What do you want to see happen?
Yeah, I want this to be a massive global brand, right? I want to help as many people as I possibly can, just like you want to. It's 1 million homes by 2040, right? Yeah. And we haven't pinpointed it to a goal that specific, but it's to be a massive global brand that really helps people. And just like Zeno stands for something that's more than just solar panels, more than just energy teas, right? We want to be almost a cultural movement in a way that like this is a brand that really resonates with people as something that's positive for the world. So it's taking that as far as that can go. And then for me personally, it's getting, to the greatest version of myself, which is a constant battle and something like you got to work at every single day.
Yeah. Yeah. And both really important commitments as a whole, right? So I think with a goal that's as big as that, why do you believe that you're going to be able to do it?
Again, it's just this like deep core fundamental belief that if I don't quit, I can do it, right? And it's, I don't even think about failure. It's not even an option, right? It's just every time something doesn't go right, it's just we've learned one more way that doesn't work, right? And I feel it in my core now. I've had enough signs, I've had enough things happen where there's some divine power behind what we're doing. Even our first flavor, right? It's called Divine Strawberry.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It was originally going to be a different name. Yeah. And the graphic designer that we were working with, that we just happened to pick at the time, I didn't know this, but he worked as a youth pastor at a church. I'm like, what's a good name for the strawberry flavor? And he said, Divine Strawberry. That's how we came up with the name. So there's just been enough of these like little signs that tells me that this is my path, and as hard as it's been, as long as I don't quit, we will get there eventually. It might just not happen on my timeline.
Mm-hmm. No, that's a good way of putting it. It's like a seed. And it's weird, right? Because especially once the moment happens, and I'm not sure how you guys' brains work, but once the moment has passed, and you look back, is when you realize that all the steps were actually already lined up.
Yes.
And then the story comes out of it.
Absolutely.
Right? So it's always weird experiencing that. But it's the most beautiful, I think it's probably the most beautiful part of the journey is going through the commitment to something that you know is right, and then going back and taking a look at it and realizing how right it actually was.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's tough in the moment, right? Right now we ordered this machine that was almost $500,000. It's never worked properly. It's caused us so many challenges. That's been the root of a lot of the darkness that I've experienced this year. And there's a lot of days where I'm like, why couldn't this thing just work, right? Like there's no reason why it didn't it could show up and not work. But I'm sure I'll look back one day and I'll be like, oh, that's why that happened, because it led us in this direction, right? But it's so painful in the moment to have faith.
Oh, man.
I'm sure you guys can relate to this.
Oh, there's one story that I'll never forget. Christmas in Edmonton, 2018, I think it was, right? Yeah. It was wild. So going into, maybe this will help you with your story. What had happened was a friend of ours, Richard, who worked at a company called, Solar Wholesaler? And then they turned into some other companies, and now he's with Gullivan Green Tech. These are industry names.
Yeah.
He had said, hey, and this is when we didn't really have much work, and we would take any project we could get. And Richard's like, guys, it's almost Christmas. I can't do this project. Can you guys help me out with it? This is how much I'll pay you for it. And kind of looked at you like, oh, this could be a really good amount of money for us to be able to finish the year off. And what was it, like $9,000? It was like, honestly, looking back at it, it wasn't very much. And we're like, we need all the money we can get, so let's go do the work ourselves. We jumped into our Ford. We had a Ford EcoBoost at the time. Grabbed a trailer, filled the material up, drove up to Edmonton, and this was like days before Christmas, and we were staying in like a random friend's condo, and just like, I think, were we sharing a bed or sleeping on a couch? I forget what it was, but it's a classic situation.
Yes.
And it was cold, and it was Edmonton, and the problem was it wasn't just Edmonton, it was cold. We were on a house that was at the top of a hill that was at the top of a river. So all this cold air would blow, all this wind would blow and carry the moisture up.
Yeah.
And we were on a steep roof. And I think the problem at that time of the year is it's super dark days, like really quickly. And we needed about 14 hours a day to be able to get the project done.
Jeez.
And we were only getting 6 hours of sunlight.
Yeah.
So we were working with headlamps, and it was icy, and it was just him and I. We were tied off, and we were safe about it as much as possible, because if you fall off this roof, you're dead.
Yes.
I think it was 50, 60 feet off the ground. But we got it done, and we used energy drinks to be able to get through it.
Go.
But even your drive home was scary, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think I stayed up there because I have family in Edmonton, and I ended up staying up there and having a really good Christmas because of having to earn the right to have Christmas and not dying. But Kai's drive home was scary. I think he called me and I forgot what happened. He's freaking out.
Oh, I think it's because so I'm not sure. So when a trailer's empty, right, it's pretty much like it's super dangerous, especially on. So I think that was the time when it jackknifed.
Yeah, it did, and you ended up in the ditch.
Yeah, so it was just chaos. But the part that actually ties back to your side with the machine not working, anything on this job that couldn't work didn't work. So like we would get up there and then like something wouldn't align, and it would like we'd be holding this panel and we're like, the clip won't go in. Like, what is going on? Like, why won't this clip just work today?
Yeah.
Or like the optimizer wouldn't click in and like the thing was broken. You're like, this hasn't happened once. Now it happens today at midnight or whatever. You're like, so it's just everything, right? Same thing. It's just, you're like, you can never catch a break, right? You're just constantly getting hit with things. You're like,
with things,
why
right?
today? Like,
That
just
didn't have to
do
go
this to me
wrong,
on a
right?
sunny day tomorrow, like, or whatever.
And I find it'll all happen in the same day, right?
Oh, 100%.
Your machine won't work, then the truck that was supposed to show up got stuck in the ditch, and then
Yeah. So
right now your cat needs to go to the vet. And that's just...
Oh, it was terrible. It was terrible. And the takeaway was from that, I think Kai almost died on the way home, basically. And I think when he called me, I think I was eating like some sort of Christmas food, and I was like, this is great. And then he calls me and I was like, no matter what, nothing matters around you all of a sudden. One of the most important people in your life is almost, like compromised. So after that, we made a call. We're like, no more installs. We don't do installs anymore.
Yeah.
And I think that was one of the last installs we did. I think we helped out a few there, and we drew that line. So through the pain, we learned the lesson and we owned the lesson, so we didn't have to make the same mistake twice. And I think that was that's kind of our go-to thing, is you never make the same mistake twice. If you do, then you're the fool.
Exactly.
So that was that piece. So whatever you learn from this, if it means you have to destroy that machine, so be it.
Yes.
If it works out, then great, it's your best friend. But whatever lesson you learn, I think we already know you're the kind of guy that's not going to make that same mistake twice. But it was crazy. I do not want to go back to those situations.
Yes.
And we don't do that to our team. So these lessons learned as well too. If our team is in that situation, nor would we ever put them in a situation. They work typical days. When it's cold out, they're given their warm-up breaks.
Yeah.
We were at the point in these projects where, even at this one specifically, we were getting so frustrated with the troubleshooting, and the wind was blowing extra hard one of these days, and Kai's hands were like frozen.
Yeah.
And the clips sometimes between solar panels, you can't get them undone because they're super tiny. And he's trying to get the clips undone, and I'm holding a panel and the wind gusts going, so my arm became hyperextended. And we don't usually complain to one another on site, but I was like, Kai, you got to get this done. My arm's going to rip off. Like, I can't hold this any longer. And Kai's like, no, you have to keep holding it. And I don't know what happened, but somehow we clipped it in. The panel slammed down. We went down and everything worked. And right at the moment where I thought like all the muscles were going to tear out of my arm and his fingernails felt like they were falling off, it worked.
There you go.
Oh man.
Jeez.
So for what it's worth, just stick to it, man.
Yeah.
Right when you feel like you're about to die is probably when it'll work.
It's when it's gonna work.
Yeah.
Well, that's inspiring to see where you guys are now, and it was neat when you guys gave me the tour and just to see how happy your staff are. I think that says so much about a company, right?
It's so important.
Yeah.
Especially in business, you can get lost in the money sometimes.
Absolutely.
At the end of the day, you have to remember why you started the business. And for us, it's to make sure that people weren't treated the way that we were treated. We want people to be treated
properly.
And we give everybody every opportunity. We try new models out. We burnt so much money in the process, but we have maintained our sanctity as who we are as people. I think that's the most important part.
Yes.
Now, to be fair, I think everybody has good characteristics and bad characteristics. Just own the bad ones too.
Absolutely.
Like whatever, right? It is who you are.
Work on them.
Work if you want to,
if you can.
or just be yourself. Right? Like I mean, it'll probably work a little if you can. But speaking on stuff that you're working on, we figured we would have a little bit of fun here, right?
Yeah, I think do we want to do the sponsorship thing? So first of all, since the great sponsor Zeno of the Zeno podcast, right?
Yes.
So we should talk about our sponsor reviews, and then yours as well if you're cool to share some. Just some reviews that you had about your company.
Absolutely.
Cool. Do you want to do ours first?
Sure.
Try this.
Let's not make you too uncomfortable. So the cool thing is every business needs to be able to validate itself, right?
Yeah.
Tooting your own horn is probably the worst thing that you can do.
Yeah.
So we do ask our clients to leave us reviews. We have good ones and bad ones.
Yeah.
So the best part about it is that the bad ones gives us opportunities to be able to improve ourselves
to get better, right?
and lose some sleep.
Yeah.
And then the good ones are really beautiful because they actually mention our team and some of the things that we've grown in. So what do you got?
I think we'll start with Greg. So this is in Calgary. So the crew at Zeno were great to work with. For my home solar project install, the installation team were incredibly professional, and I appreciate the information and updates that provided me during the process. Our sales associate Andrew was very knowledgeable and was able to answer every question I had about the install and government programs available for the project. I would absolutely recommend Zeno to anyone considering a solar install in the Calgary area.
Yeah. There you go. Thanks, Craig. And you gave us a 5-star review there.
Give us a 5-star. The one that you...
I like John's. I think it's John. Yeah, John gave us a 5-star review as well, too. And he said, I recently used Zeno Renewables to install my solar panels. I dealt with Daniel Etches, who was my consultant, who was very knowledgeable and carefully explained any questions or concerns I might have had. He made all the arrangements to get my project going and dealt with making sure the government grants were applied for and the city permits were arranged for. The project team, led by Blair, arrived when they said they would and finished the work a day ahead of schedule, which, I mean, that's always awesome. I love hearing that. Communication between myself and the Zeno members was excellent. What impressed me about Blair's whole team was how respectful they were to me and my property. All the work was done in accordance with city codes and received a good word from the city electrical inspector. The whole Zeno team have been a pleasure to deal with, and I'd certainly be the first in line to recommend it to my friends, family, and colleagues. And so those are 2 great reviews, and seeing stuff like that and going back to what you were saying about the people and how they're happy.
Yeah.
They've earned it, right? And they all put in their hardest, they put in the hardest effort and the best foot forward. So when we see those, and even the bad ones, you're like, hey, it's okay, right? Like we can fix these things. How do we become better as a team? It's inspiring. I think that's where the real inspiration is in the people that work
right.
Here.
Yeah, 100%. Would you like to share one if you want some of your stuff?
I guess going along with that, I don't have the review in front of me, but one that has really touched me, and I think about it often, is we were going through, this was last year actually, going through, again, a really turbulent time. We were building our manufacturing line. Felt like everything that could have gone wrong was going wrong, right? I think I told you guys this story once. My father, he was helping me out. He had a broken leg. Ended up, we were rushing after a contractor one day, and he slipped on a pallet that I was supposed to move and broke both his arms. So now I got a father with 3 broken limbs. Rented an electric wheelchair and showed up pretty much the next day. So that's been a huge source of inspiration. So we're going through all this, it's dark, and we get a message from a customer that says her husband was in the hospital for cancer, and Rviita was the only thing that was making him feel better. And we got this long, heartfelt message, and it was like he ended up passing. And when he passed, he had a Rviita pouch in his outfit that he was wearing when he passed. And we're still very good friends with her. She comes and visits us all the time. But this was one of those moments that put everything in perspective, right? Of like, you know, everything that we're going through is worth it because we're making some kind of a positive impact in the world. And so we have a folder in our office with her messages. And when we're having a bad day, we read them. That's one of our routines, just to remind us and ground ourselves. Because, you know, there's a bigger purpose behind what we're doing, and we have to push through these tough days.
Well,
yeah.
I guess that concludes the Sunnyside sessions review.
Yeah, Sunnyside moment. That is wow. That's
awesome.
Yeah, that is awesome.
And then we have one more fun thing. So this is This part of
Taste
the podcast episode is probably the part that we're most excited for, the taste test.
The blind taste.
The blind taste test. So since this is
Don't
your
worry, if you get it wrong, we won't air that part.
I better get it right.
Okay.
Okay.
yeah, so we want to describe what's going on here because I know some of you are going to be watching and some of you are going to be listening. So we have 3 glasses in front of us with what looks like, you know when you turn on your tap and the water comes out a little bit dirty? There's probably rust to the pipe or something like that. Like that's what this looks like. So this is one of your drinks.
So it can either be Rviita,
Zivia
energy,
Yerba mate.
or
and
BioSteel.
BioSteel.
Oh,
I
this is
already
gonna-
know what this one is.
Oh no.
Okay.
Cheers, Scott. All right,
Cheers.
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 Let's try this.
Yeah, I know what this is.
Does not taste like Rviita, I'll tell you that. I'm gonna say the second one.
Yeah, no, it's the.
Oh,
I think
shit.
this is yerba mate.
Yerba mate, yeah. It's definitely yerba mate.
Mm.
Yerba mate has a very distinct aftertaste. I
Yeah, it
find,
does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, did we get that right? Oh.
What was it?
Oh, it was this one I got wrong.
Yerba-
Oh, she's ready to go.
Yerba mate.
Oh, damn.
Okay.
All right, so this
Okay.
one's clear.
So the next one looks like,
Thanks.
even the consistency, it actually almost looks like vodka.
Yeah.
Yeah, the way that it's in the
Okay.
glass. Oh, and this one smells really strong. I already know what this one is from the
I
smell.
think I know what this one
Yeah.
is too.
This is BioSteel.
Mhm.
For sure. This is BioSteel.
Oh, yeah. BioSteel.
I can taste those
Yeah.
electrolytes.
Yeah, 100%.
That's
Yeah.
BioSteel.
BioSteel?
It is
Yeah.
a cool Canadian success story, BioSteel.
It is, yeah.
Although they went out of, or they got sold or
I think they got
bankrupt or
sold.
something. Like
'Cause
it
they-
was,
They're huge now into
they're
like,
massive. Yeah.
you can buy the powder stuff, right? They sell that at, I think it's BioSteel where it's like a big powder thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they
You got
were
that one, BioSteel?
just
Yeah.
hemorrhaging cash.
Oh.
It's
The
because
product
of
is
all
a-
those sponsorships,
Yeah,
right?
the product
Oh.
is a
Yeah.
tough one.
The branding side of it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so this
so now
one's-
this one looks like a little bit copper colored. And
Okay.
I know what that is.
Oh. Yeah, we know what that is.
That's the good stuff.
Yeah, Rviita,
yeah, that actually
definitely.
tastes. Isn't that okay? So for what it's
Well,
worth,
that's
we had
crazy.
it tastes so light
So
compared
light.
to the other ones that we just
Like
tried.
yerba
Yeah.
mate, hey?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yerba
That's
mate
crazy.
is, I guess, probably one of our indirect, I guess you could say direct competitors. And
Yeah.
that's
It's a good product.
It's a
Is
great
it made out
product.
of tea as well, or is it?
It's like a plant out of South America.
Okay.
Yeah, it's from the
Yerba mate.
rainforest.
But it's got a strong aftertaste, I find. That's my personal
A little,
opinion.
I wouldn't say
Yeah.
pungent, but it's dancing towards that direction.
It's like an
so-
earthy taste.
Earthy,
right?
yeah, earthy is better. Yeah, that's a good way.
Well, we're 3 for 3, so if we had the
We're
last
3
one
for
wrong,
3.
then something's wrong.
Yeah, we really screwed up.
If we get this one wrong,
Watch this actually be
yeah,
vodka.
So-
yeah, unless they screw to us.
So the problem is now, and I guess for,
Oh.
once again for those who aren't watching, I'm vibrating now. So we've had
Well, you'll be ready to go.
three-
now.
I
So,
hate
yeah.
I hate to be a hater here, but this one's not good. I'm gonna put that out there.
This is this tastes like something you would chase alcohol with.
It's
yeah.
super like
This is
fizzy. I don't
really
like that.
fizzy. I've never tried this before. This tastes like 7-Eleven. What's it
It's-
called?
I don't know.
It's probably
7
our
Up.
biggest competitor, so I appreciate it.
Don't ask us to be brand ambassadors because your product
you.
isn't good.
The podcast will not be sponsored by them anytime soon,
Yeah.
I don't think.
We just
Yeah.
sorry.
I mean, different,
I don't like that.
Put it say different strokes
Yeah.
for different folks. And
Yeah.
if you like fizz where it feels like it's all consuming,
Yeah, I'm not.
then this is the way to go.
That's your
um,
biggest competitor.
One
Yeah.
of them, for sure. Yeah, in the natural
Yeah.
energy space. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Zivia Energy is the last one.
Zevia Energy.
Zevia.
Amazing brand, though. There's a lot to be learned by them. They're
Mm.
a public company, I think, now. And
Yeah.
Damn.
So are you gonna hire me? I'm 4 for 4. I'm like,
you're hired.
yeah, there you go.
Holy, okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
Damn.
That was fun.
That was, yeah, that's a cool way to do it.
Yeah. Hey, so this has been an incredible time again. You know, anytime we sit down with you, I always feel, for some reason, I'm not sure what it is about you and your energy, I feel reset. So I appreciate the time that we've been able to
Thank
spend
you.
together. And Kai, always good from hearing from you. You know, man, I don't get to see you
Of
too
course,
often, so this is also nice
Never,
to spend time
yeah.
with you as well, too.
Great, great.
So,
The energy drink's definitely hitting you right now.
yeah, guys.
Well, I feel the same way, and I really look up to you guys. Like what you have built here, and being able to see, you know, I'm 4 years in. You guys are what, 8 years in now, or 9? Is it 8 or 9 years?
8.5,
so to see where I could be in 4 years, and like what you guys have accomplished, and even just your personal lives, has been really, really neat for me to see and something to work towards. So thank you guys for having me, and keep doing big things.
Yeah, it goes both ways. What you're doing isn't easy. Building a product is a different league of difficulty. So
it's a crazy endeavor for sure.
Yeah,
fun but crazy. Yeah, sweet, cool,
awesome.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
That's another episode of Lead the Charge wrapped. Thanks for listening.